All right, so now that we've looked at animism as a whole, I want to dial this down and apply the animist perspective, the animist lens, specifically to the plant spirits. And I'm of course singling out plants because I do plant work. I am a plant spirit worker. This is who I am. But I want to give you this little note before we move forward. By singling out the plants, you're given a bit of a model, a bit of a framework to then apply to every other kind of person. So you can kind of take how we explore plants in this video and use those same points to explore animals, companion animals, wild animals, animals of the ocean, animals of the sky, or places, or the dead, the ancestors, or non-human people, like the good folk, the fae. So we're focusing on plants, but don't feel like we're limiting the discussion here, because really this is a framework, right? You can apply this wherever you want. So first and foremost, a reminder, right? We have to constantly remind ourselves of the basics because we have been conditioned in exactly the opposite way of this. So it gets repetitive, it gets annoying, it gets frustrating that we even have to do this because we don't want to have to do it. We want to be there, we want to arrive. But ultimately, when you click out of this video, when the class is over and you go back into the world, you will walk back, more than likely, you will walk back into a world that has been set up to maintain the hoax, right? That animism is not real, that humans are supreme, and that there are micro supremacies within the human people, and that we can do whatever we want, right? Because we can, we should. So we have to sort of hold this mindfulness. We have to be kind of keeping the ball in the air all the time that the world is filled with people, and not all of them are humans, right? We're sharing the world, and the world is being shared with us by innumerable amounts of other kinds of people. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but let me say this. When we get to step back into that world, when we get to consciously, in an experiential way, step back into the world that is filled with people and not all of them are human, life becomes so much better, so much more magical. To get out of the echo chamber of human supremacy, to step into relationship where you can speak to the world and the world speaks back to you, to me, should be the goal of spirituality. Not some escapist philosophy of get out of here and get to some far off heaven, or transcend anything, or be better than anything, or get out of the illusion, the trap, the poison of the human body, or of nature, right? Which is really common with a lot of the religious and spiritual ideologies we have. I say that our spiritual goal should be relationship, right? To have those relationships. It's magical, and it's a good place to live. And when people step into that space, those philosophies that teach them that we should be trying to get out of here as quickly as possible suddenly become kind of silly, because we're happy here. We realize that nature is where we belong. The earth is our home. The land is our great provider. And suddenly this idea of getting out of here and somewhere better doesn't make sense, because better loses its power, right? So, little sidebar. So let's begin with a gentle reminder that plants are people, right? Like you, plants have consciousness, awareness. When you are near them, they are aware that you are there. When you talk to them, when you water them and feed them, when you harvest them, they are aware, fully conscious of your presence. That's a thing in and of itself, right? That's a heavy hitter. They think in their own way. They feel in their own way. Now, the human brain, the conditioned human brain, immediately goes to no brain, no central nervous system. Who cares, right? Our very thin, very narrow perspective of what constitutes life, consciousness, thought, and feeling is really only specific to the human experience. The spectrums, the machines, the tests that we have that define consciousness, thought, and feeling have been made by humans. Therefore, those technologies are quite limited to what's relevant to humans, right? Similarly, if a dog was to create the same set of standards, there are probably ways the humans would not fall into them, right? We don't have many of the same ways of thinking and feeling that dogs do. So if they were to set the rules, we might fall outside of them. It's ridiculous, again, for us to apply human-centric, human supremacy litmus to all people. It doesn't work. We're all very, very different, and that's why respect is important, because regardless of your understanding, the respect is there simply loving people for being who they are, right? That's the solution. So plants, fully conscious, thinking, feeling, remembering, goals, dreams, wishes, fears, traumas, illnesses, it's all there. Always remember to come back to the complexity of your inner world, the intensity of your narrative, of your feelings, of your thoughts, how big all of that is for you is the same for all other people, right? Every other human also has a past and has stories and dreams and goes through the big orchestra of feelings and thoughts every day that you do. And then from there, keep stretching, keep pushing so that now animals can also have all of that and plants all of that. So just come back to yourself when you need a map or a reminder of what it means to be a person, right? We get to come back to this egocentric place and be like, well, I feel big feelings every day, so other people must feel them too. And how might that change how I interact with them, right? So plants are people, all the complexities, all the depth, right? But they are not humans. So here's our first kind of deeper, 201 lesson of animism, that just because someone is a person does not mean they're like a human person. And this is our dismantling of human supremacy, of human-centric thinking and believing, where we step out of the limelight. We stop living ego and start living eco relationship, right? So while plants are fully sovereign people, they are not like us. They are other than human people, non-human people. So we share personhood in common, but very little else. They're very different from us, obviously, right? We're going to get into a little bit of who plants are. Now, some of the aspects of this are very deep and are mysteries, right? A mystery teaching means you can't teach it to somebody. You set up a scenario in which they receive the aha. They get the download themselves. Mysteries are revealed and realized, not taught. So we talk around who the plants are, right? Because it's the best we can do. The invitation is there to go out and hang out with plants and let them give you those realizations, right? So the true identity of plants is that they are fully sovereign spiritual beings who are rooted in the world of spirit, in the other world, the world that permeates and exists as a substrate to our world, and they branch, grow, and fruit into our world. So they are beings who occupy two spaces at once, right? This is one of their magic powers. This is why plants are so important. They hold the whole world together. Everything that we need to live comes from them. Air, food, medicine, fiber, fuel, shelter, companionship, art, and beauty, all of it comes from the plants. We cannot be without them. We are in a fully codependent relationship with plants, right? So they are spiritual beings. They exist in their truest self, in the other world, in the world of spirit, in the way that you and I exist fully in our world, right? We occupy this world, this is our world, but there are layers to reality. And in the other world, the plant spirits exist in their full form. right? But they reach through. They reach through the veil that separates their world from our world. And so they are rooted there. And in our world, they blossom. They have a physical form. They channel, they grow their spiritual energy into our world to take care of us, right? That virtue, what we say, the virtue of the plants, their magic, their medicine, their nourishment, is what it is because it is rooted in the substrate, in the spirit world, in the other world, right? So getting into the worlds is beyond the scope of this class, but I think most folks can grok the idea that this is not all there is. And we kind of touched on this earlier, that permeating our world, saturating our world, is another world and other worlds. It is said in many of the old Irish and Scottish and kind of pan-Celtic lore that our world, the world we live in, what we experience, right, is like an island floating in the world of spirit. We're one very small part of what exists and what's possible. Again, another invitation to humility, right? To step out of that human-centric way of being. So plants are very special kinds of beings, right? They occupy two places. They are who they are because of that ability to act as living bridges between our world and the other world. We are fascinated by plants. They keep us alive. Every spiritual tradition in the world, especially those of a magico-medicinal bent and those who are animist, plants are all wrapped up in our symbolism, our lore, our stories. We talk about trees, we talk about plants. That's why, right? They are direct links to the other world. So when we sit with a tree in journey and ritual and meditation and prayer, when we sit with a plant or make medicine or make magic with a plant, we have this direct line from the plant that grows and manifests in our world to the root of the plant in the world of spirit. And so we're pulling it in a way that is immediately powerful and magical and expansive, right? So that's the true identity of plants. Now, there are layers and layers and layers to that, right? Beyond what we can get into here. But now the invitation is there and the initiation is in your heart to start thinking of them in a different way and allowing for them to be people, to be in communication and relationship with you, and to be bridges, allowing you to pull more from the world of spirit, that matrix that feeds everything we experience, and to send back to the world of spirit, right? Gratitude, offerings, prayers, magic. So this is why plant work is so powerful, right? It's not a shortcut, but it's a shortcut. So as we move on, I want to look at other kinds of humans, right? Other kinds of people. And of course, the plants and the animals will be wrapped into that, and kind of how we see personhood in a big picture. So we've kind of unpacked plants a little bit. Let me give you a little more language to play with as we move. So when we talk about personhood, we have human people. We all know them. We are one of them, right? And then next, we have non-human people, right? Animals. You could even say plants, although I probably wouldn't put plants in this category. To me, non-human people are the easiest other people to like honor and recognize. There are companion animals. We see their personality, their emotions. We see the depth and the complexity of their consciousness, and maybe even insects. You know, bugs for some people are non-human people. They're a little easier. They're kind of the next step after humans to like embrace personhood, right? Then from there, we have other than human, right? Animals are kind of like us. They eat food, they walk around, they breathe air, they go to the bathroom, they make babies. They like do all that. They have communities and socialize and communicate. They have a lot of things in common with us. They have physical, fleshy bodies, right? Then we have other than human. They're other. They're different. We can't even really compare them to us anymore. They've stepped out of that human-animal likeness, right? And that's where, for me, the plants and the places come in. So the plant spirits are other than human people. They're not like us, they're other. But they're still people, and we're still capable of entering into deep, intimate relationship with them in our spiritual work, right? And then beyond that, this one's not for everybody, but it's true nonetheless. If you ask me, if you ask our ancestors, our shared ancestors, we have more than human people, right? So we've got our humans, our non-humans, then we've got our other than human, and now we have our more than human. And more than human people are what we have referred to as our heroes, our gods, right? The old gods. These are people who, if we think about our world as being an island in the realm of spirit, these are people who occupy the fullness of the realm of spirit. They are ancient people. They've been around for a very long time, maybe forever. They have positions of authority. They act as teachers, initiators, protectors, guides. They act as gatekeepers. They channel certain energies or certain patterns or cycles into the world and control them. They are the orchestrators or the servants of nature, right? So when we think of more than human people, we are thinking about what the pagan folk and the pre-Christian, I can only speak to my ancestral traditions, the pre-Christian people of the pan-Celtic world would have called the gods, the shining ones, right? They are the ones that we turn to when we need help on a big level. And they're the ones that we acknowledge and respect for the job they do, right? For what they hold, for what their position is in the cosmos and in our direct tiny little world that we live in, our little campfire, right? So here's an invitation to those folks who work with the old gods, who work with the elder gods. Do not fall into the trap. Don't think that because you're working with elder gods, you're serving elder gods, that you have somehow mastered animism. Because what I see time and time again is people allowing for humans to be people, allowing for animals to be people, allowing for plants to be people, the fae to be people, and then they stop at the gods. The gods are like now not people anymore. Somehow they're some other thing. The gods are people, right? So we have to stay in our animistic lane. That's very important. I realized that I skipped over the fair folk, the good folk, the fairies, the elves. This is a big topic, right? When we do plant work, we are definitely working a very fae art. The fae are very, very connected to the plants. That is the world they inhabit. They also act as liminal beings and move between spaces. And so for me, they are other than human. Not necessarily more than human, but they are fully other. And we know this because of our Celtic fairy lore. The fairy faith of our deep ancestors reminds us time and time again of their ability to shapeshift and to appear in different ways and to manipulate time. So we know they don't follow the same constraints and constructs that we do, that animals do, right? And maybe even that plants do. They're very much other than human people. So in a nutshell, that kind of encompasses all the different big broad categories of people who exist and kind of shows us where we are. Again, we are one tiny drop in the bucket. We are one little island of a reality floating in an endless expanse of spirit world. So it feels like we're getting kicked down a notch, and we are, and that's good, right? That helps us have respect, and respect softens the heart, right? So that we can start to perceive other people in the world and enter into working relationships with them. This is the first step in becoming close with the plant spirits, to having our plant allies that help us with magic and medicine and life and divination and the work that we do, to have these guardian spirits, these guiding spirits, these spirit teachers from the plant realm enter into our lives and to become part of what we do and how we do it. So what we're going to get into in the next video, in the next class, is ecology, equity, and respect. We're going to start unpacking some of the social implications of stepping into an animist mindset.